Hello and welcome to the first in APSCC's 2024 series of webinars. Today, the topic is demystifying LEO connectivity over the Asia-Pacific region. And this is co-presented with Eutelsat and OneWeb. Today, we're going to be talking about leveraging multiple orbits to bring a multitude of connectivity solutions in Asia. I'm joined by three esteemed panelists bringing very different perspectives on the market. So I'm Blaine Curcio, Senior Affiliate Consultant with Euroconsult, and today I'm joined by Bala Balamurali, Regional Director, Southeast Asia and the Pacific region for Eutelsat OneWeb, Fabio LaGioia, Senior Product Manager for Eutelsat OneWeb, and Andy Smart, Product Management Director for EMEA, Intelligent Technologies. And so, welcome everyone. And getting into the conversation, it would be great to have a short introduction from each of you of maybe a little bit of information about your company and your role, what perspective you're going to be bringing to our conversation today about multi-orbit solutions. So maybe starting off with Bala and then going down the line. Bala, welcome. How's it going?
Thank you, Blaine. Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. So my name is Bala Balamurali. As Blaine's mentioned, I'm Regional Director for OneWeb for Southeast Asia for market access and business development. The whole LEO-GEO concept, there is no global satellite communications player who isn't thinking about that or isn't already participating in the LEO-GEO in trying to make a LEO-GEO combination for themselves and their customers. There's multiple ways companies are doing that. As you can imagine, there are partnerships, there are acquisitions, and then there are some companies trying to do it organically. And fortunately for OneWeb and Eutelsat, Eutelsat has 36 plus geostationary satellites, and OneWeb with 634 low Earth orbiting satellites, which are almost all of them in their exact orbital positions right now. So we have a lot less to do compared to anyone who may be partnering or trying to do it themselves from scratch. So this combination of Eutelsat and OneWeb was announced back in July 2022 and finally consummated in September last year. And so, the companies come together, we've got the concepts, we've got the strategies in place, but I think the actual working of the LEO-GEO in the Southeast Asia region is probably going to happen gradually. There are some natural fits for the LEO-GEO combination, combined type of services, primarily for services that are offered on the move, because, where coverage has to be on all the time, where you need to find one way or the other to connect the customer, less so in the fixed environment. So and different parts of the world are actually the needs in different parts of the world vary based on the customer's level of sophistication, what exactly they're trying to do. And we have I wouldn't say the luxury, but we have the opportunity right now to try and plan and be prepared to deal with each of these markets differently. So how you deal with a LEO-GEO solution in the middle of Europe and how you deal with the same combination of resources available in Indonesia will be very different. In one area where the need is mainly coverage, in the other area maybe there is mobility, aviation, where actually LEO-GEO works better. So I think there's great future prospects, but we're on to a great start. And you can look forward to better things to come from the Eutelsat OneWeb combination in the LEO-GEO space.
If I can just summarize kind of like a too long didn't read version of what you've just said. So it's kind of like, so this LEO-GEO convergence, or so this kind of LEO-GEO combination is a big topic, and all these, all the operators are talking about it. And Eutelsat OneWeb, by virtue of the merger that occurred in, I guess, 2022, 2023, that puts you guys pretty far ahead of the pack in terms of specifically this, having a LEO-GEO network. That being said, it sounds like you're still in the early stages and you're still kind of working out what are going to be some of these specific use cases that are going to require the benefits of both LEO and GEO, and specifically in APAC, it sounds like, again, that's still kind of playing out. Is that a fair summary?
That's right, and my colleague Fabio will probably have a bit more to say about that. He's actually directly involved in some of the products solutions in the mobility segment.
Well, that's a great transition. So Fabio, let's hear what's been going on over on your side then.
Yes, thank you, Bala. Thank you, Blaine, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. So my name is Fabio La Gioia, and in the last 3 years, I've been covering the role as a user terminal product manager within the what we call user terminal development team at OneWeb, now Eutelsat Group, responsible for bringing to market a portfolio of satcom solutions for land and marine applications. So it's a very interesting role, I have to say, because it gives you the opportunity to look at those technology in advance, and so you can see upfront what's coming soon in the market. And let's say during the last 3 years, during this time, we have been approached by a number of well-qualified UT integrators. We call them normally technology partners. These partners have believed in the potential of our LEO constellation network, and we worked with them to develop new LEO satcom solution from scratch, from brand new solutions. Or in some cases, we have worked with them. We helped them to integrate our we call it core modules into their existing products. So the perspective that I bring to this webinar is the user terminal perspective, in particular the development, and my role has been bifold during this time. In the first, let's say, the interface towards the UT vendors, that's part of my role, and that is especially in the initial engagement phases with them. So we're talking about from concept to product specification, product requirements, support during the development, integration, and also the phases before we have what we call soft launch, followed by a proper launch. And that's the first part. The second part is actually toward the interface towards the internal customers, so representing the sort of bridge between engineering teams and sales, pre-sales, marketing, other teams. So I work very much cross-functionally with operation teams, legal, as a sort of product ambassador or user terminal subject matter expert. That is my role in a nutshell.
Interesting. And one thing you mentioned that we didn't really talk about it all during prep, but maybe I'll come back to later. It's an interesting topic, I think. Is this idea of whether these constellations or whether these systems are going to have terminals that are in-house kind of proprietary, or whether there's going to be collaboration with other user terminal vendors that are then going to be able to use, certain technologies that may be, as you said, the modules that might be proprietary. So some of that dynamic could be interesting to dig into a little bit later on, but we have a lot to get into anyway. So Andy, it would be great to get your perspective in the Intellian story, and then we have a few questions to get into. But yeah, it'd be great to get your info.
Thanks, Blaine, Bala, and Fabio for your introductions. Hi, good morning, everybody. Yeah, my name is Andy Smart. I'm a product director in EMEA. I've been at Intellian now for just under 3 years. Heading up a team of 3 other product managers. We're responsible for supporting launching the products in region, working with our HQ teams, supporting the in-life products, and basically the whole of the Intellian product portfolio, and working with the US teams as well. So for a full regional benefit, supporting the sales and supporting the partners to make sure they've got all the questions and everything they need to support the products. So I just want to give you a quick overview for people that don't know about Intellian. So Intellian is actually 20 years old. It's its anniversary this year. The last 2 years I've really seen a ramp up in growth at Intellian. For example, we've opened up Campus 2 building, so we're headquartered in South Korea. So we've had a number of expansions, and in 2022 we opened up Campus 2 with a 40 million investment, and that's now going to be the primary production for our maritime VSAT, our TVRO, and obviously related to this call for the Eutelsat OneWeb parabolics and the flat panels that will be produced there. Also, we've got our Washington Advanced Development Center that was opened in March 2023 in line with the SAT show last year. And that's our sort of center of excellence, our development for all of our flat panel terminals, again, that we'll talk to later, which are coming out this year. We've also opened in London our center of excellence for L-band, for both our fleet broadband and our Certus products that opened last year. And related to APAC, we've also opened in Singapore our regional headquarters last year. And finally, we've now got a presence in Dubai as well. So as we see the enterprise certainly developing going forward in the region, we've now pretty much got 10 regional offices that cover all that global area. So that's just a brief introduction on where we are.
Well, very exciting. And it was interesting to hear a couple of you refer to 2023 as last year. It's a reminder that here we are in the second week of 2024. And so as we look towards this new year, what are some of the highlights that you're looking towards as in terms of your company, or maybe if there's highlights in the industry more generally, welcome to hear that, but it will be more interesting to hear what should we look forward to from your company in 2024?
Shall I go first, Brian?
Sure thing. You alluded to a couple of things. It'd be interesting to hear a little bit more detail. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, this is a big year for us, especially Southeast Asia. In Q1 and Q2, we basically be launching services in most of Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Hopefully, by the end of Q2, we will be fully available in practically every part of Asia Pacific region. Yeah, there are still some little subjectivities. We have potentially some regulatory hurdles to get over, but they're not insurmountable. We're on the right track, and we have made a huge amount of progress in 2023. We would have been happier if we were able to launch services at the beginning of this year as we had planned to. But for a number of reasons, we are slightly delayed in one or two of the markets. But we have already started making plans for testing and proof of concepts and trial services in most of the Southeast Asian region. So the plan right now is to get at least fixed civil government and other sort of fixed type services working by the end of Q1, if not by Q2. That's the initial goal. And the other big thing we're hoping to see come through this year is a range of user terminals, which Fabio will talk about more later. We have, I mean, as you know about our partnership with Intellian, we started off with the dual parabolic terminals, but we're also looking forward to receiving a whole bunch of new terminals so that our services are usable across multiple terrains. Because the problem with the dual parabolic antennas is they're fantastic, great gain, but not so convenient to take to some of the very hard to get to parts of Asia. So having slightly smaller flat panel antennas, which we are hoping to receive within the coming months, will be a huge help to expand our reach and the target customers that we plan to get to. So those are a couple of things I'm looking forward to in the next few months.
And just one quick follow-up question: are you able to share any insights on which specific countries would be, some of the first markets that you'd be starting services in within the Asia Pacific region?
So Australia is already partially working. I mean, we're partially covered. We've already started services in the southern parts of Australia. So Australia will be the first one to get fully covered within this next couple of months. We also will be launching sort of trial services in Indonesia within the next month or two. Definitely, most of Indonesia will be covered by the end of Q1. Then gradually, so the whole Indochina region, Philippines, Taiwan, which are all connected to that whole stream in Q2, and then of course Japan. So that's generally how I see this thing rolling out. So Australia, Indonesia, and then spreading out over Southeast Asia towards Japan.
That's a lot going on. There's quite a few very big and dynamic markets there, indeed. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Fabio, Bala teed you up a little bit there with some of that user terminal discussion. So do you have anything to add about what's going to be exciting in 2024 on the user terminal
Oh
side?
yeah. Oh yes, yes. Yeah, actually, we just entered 2024. We've been through, I have to say, from the UT development perspective, a very productive 2023 in terms of UT development, and 2024 will likely to be even more exciting than last year. We, as I said earlier, we have worked round the clock with the UT integrators, and today we are in a better position. I think we are proud to offer our service, our high-speed, low-latency connectivity solutions to customers almost across the whole world, but definitely across domains, whether it's land or sea, but across different use cases and market segments. This is the big trend, the big change if we compare today's situation with when we started with 3 years ago with only one parabolic solutions. As a matter of fact, we currently have a portfolio of 12 UT solutions that all these solutions can operate in our LEO network. Some of these solutions are already extremely mature, and those customers who have already deployed them have provided great feedback in terms of user experience, stability, and performance. Other solutions, those that we have actually launched towards the end of 2023, those have been trialed as we speak, Australia being one of them in the field, and are already very promising. So in general, there is I would say, a huge interest from the market, in particular the APAC market, in smaller form factor solutions. Either we refer to larger enterprise flat panel or smaller lightweight solutions. Now, a portfolio of solutions which are different in nature, developed by different UT integrators for different application and use cases, allowed us to, how can I say, target markets, not just the fixed land market. In fact, if there's something that is going to happen in 2024 is trialing new use cases. I'm talking about deployable user terminal, comms on the pose, communication on the pose, or communication on the move use applications, and defense markets as well. Not to forget that. In terms of highlights in 2024, we predict, or we think that the first solution from use, followed by a more compact and affordable solution later on in the year, will be a very attractive value proposition for the APAC land fixed market in particular. And we are aiming to get a commercial launch of these solutions by Q1 2024. So very, very close. In the first half of 2024, we will see Kymeta U8 series and the Inster Folsat solution. So these are other UT integrators that have worked with us. These solutions will gather some momentum in the military market and in the land mobility market. The Inster, in particular, is a foldable, lightweight, military-grade terminal, and it's an ideal solution for deployable and comms on the pose use cases. These will be addressing military customer needs as well as the needs of those customers playing in the energy sector. So if you think of mining, oil and gas exploration, utilities, when you don't want a fixed, only static setup. For the Kymeta, I'm sure that they will find a very sweet spot in the mobile sector, in land and at sea. On land, we will have products designed for market segments such as transportation. So if you think of bus and rails passengers, those are very good a sweet spot for the Kymeta products. Content contribution for broadcaster. So if you think of news gathering agency, cell on wheels in case of off-grid application, those are very interesting applications that we will see materializing in 2024. At sea, still the Kymeta will continue to shine in performance in terms of on board of vessels like leisure vessels, merchant, commercial fishing, etc. And we will actually have the first hint of GEO-LEO capability, so the multi-orbit, talking about multi-orbit, in one of the products later on in the year from Kymeta as well. towards the end of towards Q2 2024, so mid-year 2024, we will start seeing new compact solution from Intellian, and probably Andy will add on top of it in a second. These solutions from Intellian are again flat panels, more tailored to address fixed and on-the-move application on both domains, land and sea. We will add on to transportation use cases, like if you think of recreational vehicles or first responders, so blue lights, emergency services, public safety sector, agriculture, you name it. And this is for land only. And then you will have also a variety of UTs from Intellian, which are more for smaller vessels, yachts, and fishing vessels. This is going to be a good spot for compact solution. Whereas for the large flat panels from Intellian, they will be also available towards the end of 2024, commercially available, and that will be interesting to see because there will be a very good, genuine competition between Intellian and Kymeta. So we will see how it plays out.
Well, shots fired, and yeah, your point about the lower mass or the kind of the lighter terminals. I mean, it rings true in particular. I think in Asia, I remember. I think it was the APSCC conference in 2022. We heard from somebody talking about Bhakti in Indonesia, this remote connectivity project, and talking about how some of these sites, it took 3 days to get to these sites just to install the terminal. And so I could imagine, lugging a somewhat lighter terminal over, hundreds of miles of remote Indonesian terrain over the course of 3 days. It would make it quite a bit easier. So, Andy, it would be great to hear some thoughts from you on some of on Intellian, let's say, what's coming in 2024, as Fabio alluded to earlier.
Yeah, sure. Fabio's teased it a bit there. 2024 is going to be a massive year for Intellian for multi-orbit. I mean, 2023, we'll say, because we're on the Eutelsat OneWeb webinar, is that we've had some huge cooperation with OneWeb. There's, as he's mentioned, with the parabolic terminals. We've had all the enterprise terminals parabolic that have been brought out, and actually imminently now with type approval of our OW130L, which will, again, when we talk about APAC and Australia, be significant in providing a huge performance antenna that will work on the highest of the OneWeb plans for cellular backhaul, and the likes of Australia in the remote areas. That's going to be vital where we don't have fiber, and also the 70L primary. So this will allow us to have two antennas that can be, they'll have 100-meter cable runs. So you can have a significant difference if you've got buildings in the way and you've got large built-up areas. These will be ideal. We have a fast retrace antenna that was launched towards the end of the year as well. And then what we're going to do here in London, where I am, is have a demo suites available. So for the likes of OneWeb to come, and all customers, that they can see these different variants of terminals together. And on the maritime side, last year was quite a really important year. It's the first time we were able to see these LEO terminals, these geoparabolic terminals, working in the harshest of conditions. We have a lot of trials with OneWeb in the North Sea with customers, and polar vessels that couldn't get the communications from VSAT because they're limited to the 75 degrees, are now able to go right at the top, and that was a really success. And obviously that will you'll see more and more of those vessels out as the OneWeb maritime coverage expands. So back to 2024, and as Fabio mentioned, if anyone's been on our sort of LinkedIn page and our social media, it's been Flat Panel Friday for a long time, and the ADC in Washington have been really working hard on the development of these terminals. They've been at quite a lot of shows, and customers have had the demo terminals, but obviously they're eager to get their hands on the real thing. So we are working directly, and pre-production will be coming out around the end of Q1, and then we're looking to get main production of both the enterprise and the compact terminals around the end of Q2. 6 variants, as Fabio said, so an enterprise with a maritime, a mobility, and a fixed, and the smaller compact version, which, as Fabio has mentioned, will be ideal for the smaller fishing vessels, and on the land side, like I said, emergency services and mobility and agriculture. It'll start to open up a significant market to OneWeb and for us as well, because we see these working with other terminals that we provide. So briefly on other multi-orbit opportunities, we've also got our XCO VSAT terminals, which are a KA and KU GEO, but also seamlessly being able to switch on to the MEO services as well that are coming out with SES in 2024. As well as that, so that'll be the X150D, which will complete a lineup of a 1 meter, 1.3, and a 1.5. And that's also with Eutelsat GEO as well. It will also support their KVHTS services as well. So that's obviously important for the GEO side in the cruise and the energy industries as well. So we see a combination of GEO, LEO, and our L-band as well, because also from a LEO point of view, we work heavily with Iridium, and we've got a C700 terminal out, but we're looking to launch our C200 in maritime and land. And then obviously we see that as a significant terminal that can provide not just comms itself for both maritime and land, but also as a way of a complement in remote sites to the likes of the OneWeb terminal. So if anything should go wrong, there's another ability to have the backdoor access into these systems as well, so they can complement a reliable L-band service with the OneWeb service as well. So yeah, 2024, significant terminal. So again, keep on the social media and watch this space.
Well, at the risk of exposing my ignorance, that is the first I've heard of this L-band OneWeb integrated terminal. So that's pretty cool. That's,
well, yeah. So they're not integrated, but they will work in parallel.
Yeah, let's say
complementary. Okay. Yeah, I'll put that out
there. So I guess getting to the core of the topic today, this multi-orbit solution, let's say. So we've talked a lot about what's coming and what exists, and the extent to which Eutelsat OneWeb is pretty far ahead in terms of having a LEO and a GEO system that are both in orbit right now, and Intellium being far ahead in terms of having some of these terminal solutions. So what would you say are getting a bit more tangible here? What would you say are some of the 1 or 2 most exciting or interesting real world applications that you have seen or that you've started to develop in terms of satcom applications that would really require multi-orbit connectivity, or that could really benefit from having multi-orbit connectivity as opposed to having just GEO or LEO as a standalone service?
Shall I take this?
I think so.
Well, everyone takes it eventually, so whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
So as Bala said at the beginning, the LEO-GEO reality will materialize later on we see at least in a couple of years' time. But GEO-LEO capability will make more sense, I believe, when it comes to the military or the defense world for comms on the move industry, for comms on the move application in particular. If we have to highlight instead one or two most interesting applications which are concrete and in the field at this point in time, I think one of the most interesting application is definitely in the APAC region as well, as the cellular backhaul, in my personal view. In fact, as you know, bringing terrestrial, even though it's a fixed type of application, so it's not something that requires GEO-LEO, but LEO only. This is something that we can definitely, we are working on, and we have, as we speak, trials running in the field. You know that bringing links, terrestrial links to rural areas to extend the network is sometimes cost prohibitive, especially if you compare to the urban and suburban locations. Remote and rural connectivity is a more complex scenario. It's a more complex even in terms of terrain, obstacles, forests, mountains, lakes. So it's something that it's difficult to work around, particularly if you add on top the fact that the density, the low population density, sometimes also plays against you in terms of average revenue per mobile cell site. So you have a double effect. So we believe that the LEO satellite connectivity can lower the cost of bringing connectivity, and then it will lower the cost, bringing it down to a very cost-effective price. Now, our portfolio already today includes satcom solutions that are ideal for this type of market, whether it's for how can I say, a network extension or capacity infill. If you think of demand for certain times, for special events, or backup solutions, or temporary restoration use cases. You know, when you have a disaster, you need to restore the area with some temporary solutions. We have that particular solution already today in our portfolio of user terminals. This is one of the great potential use case that I see in the APAC region. And the second one that I'm definitely going to mention here is, and this instead might take advantage of the GEO-LEO multi-orbit, is the land mobility. This is where I believe is going to be another great potential if we think of rail transport, so as well as public safety sector. Those are the the sectors and the use cases that I see very interesting in 2024, moving towards 2025, and I predict those to be the sweet spots for the near future.
Yeah, in particular, that really resonates about the kind of emergency comms, kind of redundant communication, that kind of thing. In Asia Pacific, we've seen a lot of activity there, I think. So that makes a lot of sense.
Think of forestry, Australia, for example, fighters, emergency services, police, ambulance, all those things that, you know, the market is huge in that, and the opportunities are as well huge.
For sure. So just a quick reminder to anyone viewing the webinar here, we're getting into the last 15-ish minutes of our discussion. If you have any questions for our panelists, we have their email addresses here. Do feel free to reach out to them and follow up if you have any questions. So now getting over to Andy or Balak, do you have anything to add on applications that you've seen that could benefit from, or are benefiting from, or could really use multi-orbit solutions?
Yeah, I think as Fabio mentioned, you know, cellular backhaul is definitely one that benefits from the LEO solutions we can provide. I mean, the whole LEO GEO piece comes into play when naturally GEO currently has a lot of capacity in Southeast Asia. I mean, especially if you look at some of my markets in countries like Indonesia, we're going to have, before the end of this year, somewhere in the region of 300 gigabits per second of new capacity coming in high throughput satellites, compared to maybe less than 10% of that, or maybe less than 20% of that in the LEO segments. So, you know, there's going to be a bit of a trade-off. How do you use it? Yeah, you can really be very targeted in how you position the LEO solutions, like cellular backhaul, comms on the move, mobility services, like Fabio mentioned. But having both LEO and GEO will also help us offload traffic onto the GEO for the non-LEO type services. So by that I mean like low latency type applications, which are still, in my opinion, being developed. Besides cellular backhaul, there aren't a huge amount of low latency demands in this region. So primarily the requirement is for coverage, which is, you know, which is the same as what you can do with the HDS, the GEO satellites, as well as LEO. But increasingly, new and modern applications are being developed where there is machine-to-machine communications involved, and therefore latency becomes an issue. But that is at the moment still the niche compared to the basic need for coverage. with satellites, it's a bit like airlines. You don't want to fly the satellite empty. The minute it takes off, you want to make sure the seats are all sold, right? So we can never time this perfectly. As I mentioned before, in certain parts of the world, the need is fairly well established. In certain other parts of the world, we're still looking for basic coverage. And having a global system is one of the great things about that, and that is we can actually be a different service in different parts of the world. Yeah, in Indonesia, you mentioned Bhakti. Their requirement right now is not a huge amount latency dependent, but just to make sure everyone in Indonesia is included in this whole, the digital inclusion plan that they want to have, make sure that everyone has access to banking services, everyone access to medical services. Cellular backhaul, again, not necessarily remains cellular backhaul per se, because if you think about what people do with the access to cellular networks, it's like WhatsApp, email. These can be achieved not necessarily with cellular, but even with regular Wi-Fi, if we can provide them in a cost-effective way. So it's every market's going to be different. The success or failure of the various players is going to depend on how quickly we can adapt and how quickly we can take these opportunities as and when they're presented to us. And I think so. It's a long answer to a short question, but I think basically I'm very excited about the whole LEO GEO proposition, but it's going to happen slowly. We can already see some use cases that will benefit from it immediately. But I think primarily right now, I think our focus is going to be just on the LEO solutions. And then over the next year or two, we will transition into the whole packaging of LEO GEO. That's how I see it working.
Okay, and Andy, from the terminal developer side, do you have any different perspective or any thoughts on applications that are really in the near term benefiting from LEO GEO solutions?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of obviously applications. Certainly, if we talk from maritime, for example, heavily dependent on LEO connectivity, which is the buzzword. We've seen that with the likes of Starlink going on a lot of vessels as well. But obviously, that real-time CIR requirement is still an option. So we've got a lot of customers that are still heavily on the geo side and still ordering those terminals. But again, now we're seeing that we've got the option in certain areas where there is licensing issues, for example, and availability, to have that gap with a LEO and GEO provided, and obviously L-band as well. So we've got that multiple sort of options as a terminal provider to provide. We're obviously early in the flat panels. We're bringing out the flat panels, as we say. So if we talk from a terminal provider point of view, obviously we've got an absolutely fantastic team at Washington as well. So having the ability to have GEO LEO flat is another option that probably we'll look at in the future as well. So that will be some of the probably next focus as we go from the OneWeb support to GEO LEO all in one solution as well. I mean, on the parabolics, we have the ability with the the NX series as well to track LEO, but then we will then work with OneWeb and other providers to see feasibility in the future as well. So there is options from a terminal point of view, and we'll see how the market develops and respond to that accordingly.
Yep, no, that makes a lot of sense. So getting into maybe some of the more regulatory and kind of environment, the operating environment in Asia Pacific topics. So I guess from a regulatory perspective, Bala, you alluded to it a little bit earlier about landing rights, but I guess it would be interesting to get a couple, just an update on where are you at with some of the key markets in APAC in terms of landing rights. I know we discussed, I think, Indonesia a little bit and Japan, but are there any others that you wanted to highlight, whether it be in Southeast Asia or South Asia or elsewhere in the region?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, Indonesia is a great starting point. So, I mean, being the first to market, I mean, OneWeb started off back in 2012. So we started designing the system keeping in mind some of the regulatory constraints as well. So, you know, in many of the markets in Asia, you needed to have a gateway, you needed to have a POP, and so that they can see control of the traffic happening in that market. So typically Southeast Asia, even going through Korea and Japan, Taiwan, they had very strict rules, regulatory rules, which was primarily to protect the local industry. And that is changing, but you know, as you can imagine, when you're building a global network, we can't wait for the rules to change. So we come up with a certain plan. We've already started putting gateways, expensive gateways, in some of the target markets, and working through the regulatory regimes as they exist at the moment. So we've already, you know, our approach has been to understand the regulatory requirements. You know, Indonesia is different, Thailand's different, Vietnam, you know, Malaysia, Japan. So we've gone through that step by step, making sure that we are fully compliant. So, for example, in Indonesia, we have our landing rights through our partner DTP. You mentioned before, and so that's given us a very clear advantage in kicking off services in Indonesia. But then some of the later arrivals, you know, our competitors have actually benefited from what we have done in trying to help the regulators evolve. Because if you go back a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, the regulations only existed for VSAT services. There was no NGSO, there was no LEO services they needed to worry about. But now they've had to, the early stages was just trying to fit in the LEO rules and VSAT rules and regulations to the LEO services, which they soon realized was difficult. So NBTC in Thailand, for example, has a hearing, a public hearing coming up in the next couple of days to actually look at the modifications that they've proposed to the industry, especially in relation to LEO services, because LEO solutions, just by the nature of it, are global, and it is provided by not many Southeast Asian network owners are in the LEO space. So it's mostly American, European systems. So they're known as foreign NGSO systems by all of these countries, and therefore all of the foreign operator rules apply, VSAT rules apply, telecommunications rules apply. Then they need to take all of that and say, look, how does this country benefit from this, and how can we actually make it work for our people, at the same time not become too difficult on the service, on the network provider or the service provider. So it has taken a lot of effort from OneWeb, my colleagues from regulatory policy side of stuff, where we've regularly participated in the new notifications that come from countries like Thailand about regulatory changes. And we've given our viewpoint, and it's really encouraging to see most of these regulators, including the Thai regulator, including the Indonesian regulator, actively listening to the views of the operator as well as the customer, and changing their approach to how they regulate satellite communications in their markets. So it has been a difficult road, but I think we're entering a stage now where there is going to be fairly significant liberalization of the way NGSO systems are regulated in these markets. So I'm quite hopeful that before the sort of this end of the first half of 2024, we will see a much more relaxed, still strict in their own ways, still with their own controls, but more relaxed than what it has been in the past from a regulatory perspective in some of these difficult Southeast Asian markets.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, just really, blazing the trail, as it were, of some of this NGSO regulation, because, to your point, it's all quite new. And so it's interesting times, I'm sure. So just to get into the last topic, and again, a reminder to anyone watching, you can follow up with any of our panelists by email if you have any questions. But last topic is, how are you working with institutional partners in Asia Pacific, either as customers, for USO programs, let's say, or as partners otherwise? But with space sector in general being typically a very, let's say, government focused or government dominated sector in many ways, it will be interesting to get some perspective on how you're working with government and institutional partners in the region.
I'll take a quick stab at it, but I don't want to be hogging the mic here. But let me just quickly say, you alluded to Bakti in Indonesia, so that's a classic example of how USO is being used effectively to connect the unconnected in very remote parts of the country. And as Fabio mentioned, the cost of taking fiber or cellular coverage into some of these very remote parts is prohibitively expensive. So satellites, especially LEO, is now providing the opportunity to be able to expand into these areas. And the regulators are picking up on that. The USO providers are picking up on that. And we have very close relationship through our distribution partners in Indonesia, DTP, with the USO programs in Indonesia. The USO programs themselves have not been the most successful in all parts of Southeast Asia. I mean, you probably know some of the horror stories that came from some of the other countries. I mean, we know some challenges that were experienced by the Philippines, and programs in sort of the Indochina region, Thailand, for example, where it's a challenge between the cost of whether the budgets and our cost of service provision. So it's a bit of a trade-off. It doesn't work in every region. I mean, we have the NBN type network in Australia where it's a mixture of USO funds versus some of the modern technologies. In Indonesia, it is USO funds as a main form of subsidy to get connections into these very remote areas. And in other areas where we have to, like Thailand, where we have to somehow fit within their budgets, which is extremely difficult. So it works in some parts of the world. It doesn't work in some parts of the world. The user terminal costs are a very significant part of this equation, because when you're offering user services, they don't separate airtime and user terminal cost and all that. They want a bundled price. They've got a fixed budget that needs to cover all of this. It's a double-edged sword, Blaine. It's a huge opportunity. At the same time, it's a huge challenge for us to meet that opportunity cost effectively. That's what I can say about the USO opportunity. It is significant. We're very interested. We're working with all of these governments for that, but it's also quite a challenge.
Oh, excellent. Fabio, Andy, anything to add from either of your sides?
From my side, well, guys, I want to thank you, first of all, for the opportunity. And I would encourage the audience, our customers, and the public domain in general to watch this space, to look at the social media, to follow us, and to see how we develop new products. As I said earlier, 2024 is going to be an interesting year. So let's see how it plays out for us.
I think you're on mute there, Andy.
Yeah. I just finally want to echo Fabio's thoughts. Thank you for the opportunity to take part in this webinar with Eutelsat OneWeb. As Fabio said, it's going to be an exciting 2024. So as ever, any questions, please reach out to me, but also keep an eye on our social media platform, and you can see some of the developments that are going on. It's going to be great. So once again, many thanks for allowing us to take part in this webinar.
Excellent. Well, and thank you all. And thank you to everyone who's watched and participated. And thank you to APSCC as well. And so just to wrap things up, Blaine Curcio from Euroconsult presenting this APSCC and Eutelsat OneWeb jointly presented webinar on multi-orbit solutions in the Asia-Pacific region. So again, thanks everyone for participating, and thank you for watching.